I need to hide first. I'm gonna take a moment. Let me cover myself in soap so nobody can see me. Sounds like bullying.
Kind of.
Hearing these stories absolutely changed my life.
No, but for real. And I think in a lot of cases, like, legitimate concerns that people have where they're actually like, I am here in treatment because I want to recover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm desperately trying.
Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to Eating Disorders Off Topic. Welcome back, starting a whole new year, whole new season. We're ready to go in January. Welcome back, Joy.
Hello.
It's been a long season. I think we recorded the last couple back in like October, November, and then like dropped them pretty quick, and then took like a nice little break with family and friends. Got all ready to go, and then it's weird because I always forget, like, it feels like December and January are so much further away than they are from each other, but really it's just like one day. But it feels like more of like a straight line, and then you're going back to the beginning than the actual like circle that it actually is. So it always like takes me a while for my mind to adjust and be like, okay, new year. And I'm not writing 2021 on things anymore. I was for like the first week.
Right.
And then towards like Thursday, Friday, my mind started catching it. And I was like, okay, 2022, I can do this. I'm good. So I'm all right. How's your year been going?
Pretty good. It's been going well, except for having COVID. So that was kind of a bummer. I got it right before I was due for my booster shot, and then was told that because I had Pfizer, I was actually due for my booster shot earlier now, according to the new guidelines.
Oh, 5 months, right? For Pfizer.
Yeah, it's 5 months, and I got it like 5.5 months after my second dose. So.
Oh, so close. I mean, yeah, you know. Oh, wow. My booster is set for next Friday, so I'm super excited, and I'm crossing my fingers that so the booster's good for kids like 5 and up, but like I guess like over the next few months they're doing a lot more testing, and hopefully it'll be good for my kiddo who just turned 2 a couple months ago. So otherwise we've just been kind of, staying away from a couple people and making sure things are safe, and doing the best we can like everyone else out there, right?
Yep.
But
I've definitely had quite a few things canceled lately,
yes.
Which is, I think, okay. It's probably better to be safe than sorry.
So. I haven't had this many close calls since probably like early 2020, since things got like, we're getting like this close to home, but. All right, today we are talking about kind of, I don't know, I think a lot of time spent, I don't know, for me, coming up to like eating disorder, like therapy, eating disorder treatment, especially for like my teen years and then like early 20s was like, you're still trying to figure out like what your major is if you're in college, or like what you want to do, and like what's going on and who you are, and your brain is still developing and all that stuff into your early 20s. So it's kind of hard to figure out what type of person you become, or what type of person you want to become, and what kind of things you're interested in, who you like, what type of people you like, what gender you like, and taking a lot of cues from family and friends and your social groups. It can be difficult to understand who you are when there's a lot of external input with what's going on.
Yes.
Was that similar to your experience?
Yeah, I as you were talking, kind of the thing that came into my mind is like the thing that we hear so frequently from people who are brand new to recovery is like, but if I don't have my eating disorder, who am I?
Yes.
And I don't think that's a coincidence that it is so incredibly common. Yeah. And I think this is a great topic because we get a lot of comments about like, how do I recover, and a lot of people are approaching recovery with the mindset that like you just go to treatment, somebody gives you a list of steps, you implement those steps, and then you're done.
I got my checklist done.
And then that's the
What's
pathway.
next?
Yep. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And it would actually be super nice if that's how it worked. I mean, to some degree, yes. Like there are certain steps, like follow your treatment team's,
Mm-hmm.
advice, like teaching you how to establish normal eating habits, like that is a little more prescriptive. It's the dealing with all of the things that made your eating disorder useful in your life to begin with that gets a little murkier and is different for literally everyone.
That's that's heavy. Yeah,
Yeah.
what made it useful? What was I using it for? Like what was I trying to, was I covering something up? Was I trying to heighten something? Was there something about myself that I didn't like? And then after just feeling so raw and vulnerable, like after like that was scary feeling that like vulnerability of like who am I without this? Like what does this mean if I don't have that? Like, like someone with an eating disorder, I had anorexia. Is that, and so, how, what does that leave if that's not me?
Right.
What type of person am I? A lot of these things was like, and just scared of knowing that person. And I felt so scared being alone with myself, with like this unknown of like having felt like having to introduce myself to me again and having
Yeah.
conversations with myself and be like, do you like doing this? I know when you had an eating disorder, you liked running. Do we like running? Do I like running? No, I don't like running. I don't
Right.
like running. I don't like. I thought I liked running when I had an eating disorder. I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, yeah, like you get endorphins and like it like stimulates that like happiness center. But like in recovery, I'm just like, no, I don't enjoy running at all. Like I like biking. I like riding my bicycle to work. I like lifting weights sometimes. Like those things like release like endorphins. I like going for walks, but like running's not my thing. And that's something I learned that I'm like some people like it. Some people really dig it though. And like again like cycling was one of those things that I liked before I had an eating disorder. And it was like, shit, am I still going to do that? Am I still going to like that part? And sure enough, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I do like riding a bike around. That is fun. I can still do that. And like those parts are okay. But like even some people I didn't get along with after I had an eating disorder. I'm like, do I just like this? Well, okay, so I had an eating disorder and like I had like alcohol use disorder, so like I was drinking a lot, and I'm like, so like some people just didn't vibe with who I was in recovery.
Yeah. And my guess is you probably experience with a lot of what a lot of people experience with eating disorders. There tends to be a common theme of who they are is a thing they felt like they're not allowed to be. And so the act of recovery also means sort of fighting more authoritarian systems that are built around them that have told them how to be,
Hmm.
which is terrifying. And yeah, this is a whole can of worms that we can dive into. I don't know exactly where we
I,
want to
what do you what do you
start,
mean by
but
like people telling you what to do and how to act?
um let's see. There's several different themes that show up. So I mean, I've talked to people in recovery since, I mean, gosh, it's almost like 20 years now of just talking to people at all stages of recovery. And I see a couple common themes. One is people who have come from families where the conflict style is we all need to agree or you need to get out, and there's nothing in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of develop this sense of I need to be what everybody else wants me to be because otherwise I'm getting kicked out. So I have to comply. Um, and we see that in a lot of like kind of like religious fundamentalism too, like not necessarily the spiritual beliefs, but like the culture of the church that tells people how to be. And then we also see a lot of people, eating disorders get used very frequently to suppress sexuality
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Um, and that can take multiple forms. Like some people who've had trauma might experience hypersexuality, and then they realize that if you just starve yourself, like that kind of numbs that. Or there's people who might be interested in an opposite gender than their family says they can be allowed to like. And I mean, eating disorders are a great way to mess with your endocrine system in a way that shuts down hormones and stuff like that. Um, and then there's just the sheer factor of when you feel helpless and hopeless and you feel stuck and you feel like you can't break out of whatever chains you're in, whatever form that takes. Like sometimes we'll see people who have committed to certain educational programs and they are going to get their PhD in whatever,
Ah.
and they've promised their family, and that's just what they
Hmm.
do. And then they halfway through are like, I'm not feeling it. This isn't me. But they're like, I just got to power through. I got to do it. But those feelings have to go somewhere. And so that's where a lot of times the eating disorder will come in, and you can either numb yourself by not having any calories and just living in constant brain fog. You can act out your anger with like binging and purging or any kind of, get high, crash, all of those things. And it gives a perfect distraction for people who feel stuck.
What
Yeah.
was like? What's the breakthrough moment here? Like, what was your breakthrough moment where you were just like, or like, maybe not like breakthrough, but like something you were doing where you were just like, this fits. And like something, okay, so like something I've found out about you over the last like few years that we've known each other has been like, you try a lot of different things. And it seems like some of them stick and some of them don't. Like it's interesting that like, oh yeah, you okay, so like you're doing this now, or like I hope you don't catch on fire this evening. Like I hope you don't fall from a rooftop this evening. I'm like, okay. But like
Right.
how is that part of like, like trying to figure out like like activities you like, or like what was the first time that maybe you tried something that you were like, this fits, this feels like something I could get into, or is it more of like an ongoing process?
It's kind of an ongoing process. I think there's a lot of it that was like, there's a sense of like finding your tribe in a way. And I've tried a few different activities over the years, and some of them it's like you walk in and everybody's super nice, but you're like, I don't really understand these people, but they're
Mm-hmm.
nice. And then you find other communities where it's like, oh, I know you, and I know your friend, and I know this other person, and we've never actually met, but we all do the same things, and we all share the same
Mm-hmm.
circles. And you find them on Facebook, and they have like 30 mutual friends. And you go, okay, no, these are my
Yep.
people,
Yep.
you know. Um, Gosh, I don't know if I'm really answering the question effectively, but
Is it? It's
I don't
so
know.
okay. So that it would be easy to get kind of stuck in the like. Do you ever feel that like you have a lot of like mutual friends with people in the ED community and be like, okay, maybe this is my group of people. Like they're just
Oh,
like recovery people.
yeah, I could definitely see that happening. And I think in early recovery, that might somewhat be partially appropriate just because you're all talking about the same thing at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And like, there's like shared experiences and stuff like that. I think over time, you kind of gravitate either beyond that or
Yeah.
find your circle within the, recovery circle. Um, yeah, it
I
varies.
remember feeling that way when I went to like my first NIDA national convention. It's like, oh, this is great. These are people I've been like following online. Like, it's cool to see some researchers here that like I've read their work, and like other people that are working similarly. I'm like, this is great. We're all like going the same thing. This is super cool. And that was maybe like 7 years ago, so things were different back. But
Yeah.
like it was like really interesting, and like who, um, you know, the people that I connected with back then are obviously like doing different things now. Sometimes not even in the same career or the same place or the same industry that they were back then, and to also see their growth and who where their life has taken them is also really interesting. It's more of like a, okay, so we were like in this together, but we also like found other things that we enjoy to do with our lives, to think,
Yeah.
it's
I think that can actually be a good insight in and of itself, knowing that so like a lot of times people with eating disorders, we want black and white answers of who am I, what's my label, and that's what I'm going to be from here on out, you know. But that alone is important, where sometimes it's just where you need to be at that time, and that's what you need in that moment, and then like later on you need something else, and then later on you explore something else, and that there's not a right or wrong answer. It's just about being willing to sort of go where you're compelled to go in a way.
mm-hmm.
Which actually maybe that's the I'm struggling in my mind trying to figure out like what was the thing, kind of like you asked, like what was the thing that what I've seen over the years is that a lot of people enter recovery having this image of who they want to become, and it's based on what society likes, based on what their family likes, based on what they think their treatment program wants them to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah.
And then who they really are is that those things in the back of your mind, that voice that just won't go away, that is really inconvenient sometimes, where you're like, yeah, I just don't want to be in this PhD program, but I have to. I have to shut
Yeah.
that off. I have to shut that. It's way too inconvenient. That would mess up my life. I can't do
Mm-hmm.
it. Or like, oh, I think I actually might be attracted to a different gender. Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Shut it off. Shut it
Mm-hmm.
off. But that voice just keeps coming back and keeps coming back. And usually it's like the part of yourself that you've deemed inconvenient, that is the part you need to pay more attention to.
Maybe
Yeah.
just kind of like ride that out too, and be like, like explore those thoughts more. I think was what it did for me. It was like
Mm-hmm.
not just immediately shutting it down, but maybe just listening for a while
Mm-hmm.
and like ride that wave of inconvenient thought and see where
Yeah.
it's going to go from there. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be in this program. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like what would that
Or
mean?
maybe
Like
I
what
shouldn't.
what type of lifestyle would I have if I wasn't in that program? Like what would that mean? Like what type of things could I do? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't in nursing, if I wasn't in the medical field, like what would I be doing? I'd be like, oh, I would have my weekends off for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If I worked from home, I'd spend more time, with my family. I could do this or that, and things that, maybe some things that I didn't think were possible. And
Yeah.
it's exciting because I feel like it opened up my mind more into what recovery could look like for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, instead of what it should look like or what people have been telling me it looks like.
Right. Right. And even I like what you said about even just leaning into those thoughts and just asking questions, like not even being like, oh, I guess I need to do this now, but just like, let me think about them
Yeah.
for a minute. Because also, like, for example, if you're in your PhD program and you've decided that it just doesn't fit, but you're trying to make it fit, like, lean into that and say, what is it that doesn't fit? And, like, in there somewhere, you'll get a clue to your own values, like
Mm,
your own beliefs, your own purpose. And sometimes in seeing the places where we're disjointed from the world around us, like, that's how we kind of figure out, like, okay, I'm this other thing and I'm going to pursue that. And either I need to speak up and maybe change and influence the environment around me, or maybe I need to find a new tribe to hang out with, where I can be this person. Um, yeah.
mhm. How So I'm thinking of a way of like, how did this like manifest itself in me, in where I'm at? Like, what choices did I lean into to get where I'm at now? And I think a lot of it was just kind of taking those chances and being like, okay, I think I'm ready for this. I think I'm I'm pretty like in the beginning of recovery and even like before my eating disorder, just like running and hanging out with any like girl or guy that was cool. And just being like, all right, this is fun, this is awesome. But then like further on, being like, okay, maybe I should make more conscious choices of who I spend my time with and who I'm available for. And that led to like finding my wife, who was great. And being like, okay, this is nice. I like this. And then like, is it like having kids was like a completely different thing because it felt like I wanted to, but I didn't want to at the same time. And then like being so scared about like, how do I feed a child? Like, am I going to struggle? Like I've struggled with feeding myself. What do I do? Like, I have to feed myself 3 times a day. I have to get to like feed a child again after that. I'm like, that's nuts. Like, I don't want to do that.
It's a legit fear.
And then
Yeah.
and then like going through that and like talking with her, I'm like, okay, this is like kind of like putting it in my brain for a while and going through it and being like, okay, I can do this. This is all right. I've had cats for a while. I'm ready for a child. This is what I can do. But you've had a bunny for a while, so like, do you do bunny, cat, and then no child, or like, do you just do like bunny, cat? Like, what's?
As far as like what sort
Well,
of decision making
I know, like
process?
we've talked about like you're in like no like not like children groups, right? So like,
Mhm.
at what point like did you get comfortable with that and knowing like that's what like decision you wanted to make?
It was kind of interesting. Like when I went through early recovery, like that was never anything that I was like considering on my radar about whether or not I'd want to be married with kids or whatever. Or I mean, I suppose it's always kind of in the background is like we're always led to believe you're supposed to find your partner and then get married and then have kids, blah blah blah. And I think over the course of many years, like I had several long-term relationships, and then um, after my last like really long-term relationship, sort of realized that the reasons that I broke up with the people I dated long term, like I saw those reasons in the first week that I knew them, and was
Oh.
just trying to be like, oh no, it'll work out, it'll be
Mm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of that led me down this rabbit hole of like, essentially just like interviewing potential partners, but being
Was that the
like
spreadsheet?
the spreadsheet, yes.
Is this where Excel got
Oh,
involved?
this is where Excel got involved. Yeah, because I think over time I realized that it's not just about finding a partner, it's about finding a partner that actually blends with me as a
Mm-hmm.
person. And so that involves both knowing myself and knowing what complements me as a person. Um, so, you know, the theme of recovery is identifying your own needs, identifying your own emotions, identifying how things impact you, and then being willing and able to say what meets your needs and what doesn't. Um, and then through that, like I haven't yet found someone where I'm like, this is my person. But in the meantime, what I did do is I built a really good life for myself, and I have a lot of really great friends. I have a lot of great community around me. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of hobbies that I truly enjoy. I have a career that I love and pays me well, and I love my life. And then when I turned around 40, I had this decision to make where it was like, okay, if I ever want kids, it's like do it now or else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I intentionally wrote out this long list of like pros and cons of like here's what I want out of my life, like here's what kids would give
Mm-hmm.
me. And for me, like it there was almost no
Yeah.
comparison. Like I have so much that I want to do in my life that when kids entered the situation, it was like, oh, that would prevent me from doing that. That would prevent me from doing that. Oh, I'd have to focus on that instead. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to take care of someone else instead of like exploring things that I'm really into. Um, and there just weren't a lot of pros from my personal perspective
Yeah.
about like having children. Um, and it took me a long time to get there because even never in my life have I ever experienced that feeling where I'm like, I really want a baby,
Yeah.
which a lot of other women,
So
like
yeah, like you hear
from
that a
birth,
lot.
they're like, I want to grow up, have babies.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, talking
And
with
like
my
more
wife
power
too, and
to
she's
them.
just like, all right, when are we gonna do this? I'm like, we've been married for like a month, so let's kind of. But
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, like there's gonna be, there's gonna be people of all different, you know, what they want out of life. So it would be, of course, natural that some people just wouldn't want kids.
Yeah. And I think that's a good example, like for our recovery being who you are, not necessarily who you should be according to other people. It's like I've never had those feelings that other women have. Like I just don't. It's never been in me, and I tried to force myself to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that I didn't, because I mean, I firmly believe that like every child deserves to be fully wanted by someone who's ready and prepared to take care of them, and I'm not that person.
Mm-hmm.
So had I listened to society and just done the thing that I was told to do, like it wouldn't just have impacted me, it would have created a person who wasn't getting what they needed.
Yeah.
And that is not okay with me. So I had to do what was good for my values and myself and my own personality.
You weren't ready to be a grandma.
No. But I love being an aunt to my
That's right.
nephews.
Yeah, you get the aunt. Yeah, you get the aunt thing. So that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's the best of all worlds, because it's like I still get to be, plus I get to be the cool aunt, like that's the better thing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I really enjoy it.
That's interesting.
And not only that, but by being willing to kind of go against the grain, I've also seen like there's things that I can do that like my parent friends can't do, just because I have a lot more freedom
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more spending money, just because I'm not spending it on kids. So like if one of my friends is having a terrible day, like I can drop everything and be like, we're gonna go get some drinks and we're gonna talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, like immediately, where my parent friends can't.
Yeah.
So I think that every tribe needs like all kinds of people to do all kinds of
So
things.
what are some, what would you call them, like barriers or stigmas that like you face from like making that choice or from like trying to live authentically? Like do you still feel like a lot of like pressure?
I think by now at this point in my life, like I've surrounded myself with people who get me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I found my tribe of people who see who I am and accept me for who I am. I have a little more trouble sometimes when I go out into like the general public with like strangers who, all kind of come with their own
Kids?
mentalities and stuff. Yeah, they're like, how many kids do you have? Or like, where do your kids go to school? And I'm
Oh,
like, I don't
okay.
know.
So it's just like this like assumption immediately because you're of a
always,
certain
yeah.
age that you, of course, have children.
Yeah. And then if I say I don't have kids, there's a lot of people who
Oh.
sort of take that as an attack on their choices.
Oh.
Which is interesting, where it's like, I didn't say that you can't have kids. I just said they're not for me, And like,
How dare you say my kids aren't for you?
I know. And I have many parent friends and I love them all. And seeing, there's certain friends of mine too who've really, really struggled to get pregnant and
Mm-hmm.
with fertility. And like, I celebrate with them when they are living the life that
And there
makes
you
them
are just
feel
hoarding your eggs.
I know, right? Yeah, if anybody wants some eggs, like you can have them. They're probably old right now, but like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you
free
see
to
it though. I mean,
go.
that was again, like that was my own concern too. Was like having a child and being like, man, like I've struggled so much just being worried about, am I doing the right thing? Like when she was like 9 months or something, I think we talked about like, I don't know, like sometimes she's eating and sometimes she doesn't eat, and sometimes I struggle to feed her, and like my friends with kids were just like, yeah, it's a baby. Like I don't. Sometimes they eat and sometimes they throw stuff up. Like, what do you? And I was like, I just don't want her to be purging and to have these urges. And they're like, dude, babies throw up sometimes.
Yep.
There was like so much of like
exactly.
my internal business just like wrapped up in this kid. I just wanted to be like, I'm sorry, like I don't want to bring my own crap into here. Just like you do you, and then like I'll do me, and like we'll just try and like be happy with each other. And Like that's just kind of what it is. I don't think I'm at to that. And like eventually, of course, like I'll get to the point where, you know, she's going to school and she hears like fat phobic crap and all that, and I'll have to like, you know, do that and have those conversations. And but not yet. Now it's just good, happy, intuitive eating times that sometimes I learn from. That's, I mean, I think that was another part of, you know, who I am too, is kind of deciding, okay, like this is comfortable, this is where I want to be. And that, like, that was like a big part of recovery. And not knowing that, I mean, I don't know, like sometimes I'll think back and be like, I didn't know this was going to be it, I didn't know this would be possible. And it's like
Yeah.
happy knowing that, and just to say to other people too, like, that is a possibility. Like you can, you know, ride those thoughts out a little bit and be like, oh, maybe this is possible. Maybe I can do this. Like, maybe I don't have to get married. Maybe I don't have to have kids. Like, if you being like, oh man, I don't really want to have kids. Like, oh, this isn't the life I want. Then don't,
Yeah.
right? Like, if you
Definitely
want to
don't.
sleep in on Sundays, then sleep in on Sundays. You get a second Saturday out of
I
it. It's
love
pretty
sleeping
great.
in. Yeah. I get all the sleep in the world and I love it. Well, and I also know myself enough to know that, like, when I get woken up early in the morning, I am cranky. And so, like, I don't want to put another person in that situation where they need to depend on me waking up in the morning, because it's not going to happen. So I know my limits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What would our
I think.
what would our
Go
suggestions
ahead.
be to people who want to make steps to live more authentically?
I think there's a couple themes that are really, really important. One is, surprisingly enough, conflict resolution skills. Because I think it's really, really common for people with eating disorders to be surrounded by people who,
Oh,
or to be, well,
oh, I don't
a
like
lot
this
of
at
people with
all.
eating
I don't like
disorders,
conflict. I don't like this at all. Oh, this
right?
is why there's two of
I
this is
mean,
why there's two of us on the podcast and not just me being like, okay, let's do that.
right? But how many times have we seen people with eating disorders be self-sacrificing to the max? You know, of like, oh, I'll just go along with it because I'm taking care of other people and I don't matter that much. I'm just going to take care of
Yeah,
other people, you know, and
it
we
just
we sacrifice
it
ourselves.
leads to just getting taken advantage of, or it
It
leads to
does.
abuse in relationships. To be like,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe this is just what I'm worth. Then,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, I guess I'll pick up extra shifts. I mean, if nobody else is gonna do it, I better do it. Or I am not feeling well, but I'll go in anyway. This is, I think it was a big deal for me at work to finally say, no, I don't want to come in this day, and then
Mhm.
just leave it at that. Oh my God, you can just leave it at that. You
Yeah.
can,
And that no is the complete
yeah.
sentence.
So you can
Yeah.
just say no sometimes. That was like,
It's
boom,
amazing.
it like blew my mind. It's like, hey, can you make it out? I'm
Hmm.
like, no, I'm good. And then that's it.
Yeah.
It's wild. But don't get carried away. Like every now and then you should go into work if you want.
I mean, if you want to
Yeah.
keep your job, yeah. But even a step further than that, the even more tricky part, saying no is the first major mountain to climb. The second major mountain to climb is when you've said no and someone doesn't like it,
Walk away.
you still get to say
Okay.
no. Yeah, because, I mean, I hear from so many people in recovery who are like, I'm totally going to stop people pleasing as long as people are okay with that.
That's so true. I'm laughing because that's me.
It's true. It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
like is everyone okay if we
relatable.
just, yeah, if we stop people
I'm going to
pleasing?
speak up for myself. Is that okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
the asking for permission to have feelings or to feel a
Hmm.
certain way or to do a certain thing. And then to say to
Yeah.
yourself that, like that, oh wow.
I give myself
Yeah.
permission is critical to recovery. Um,
Whew.
and it's hard because, like, that is something that, just by the nature of how treatment programs are, like, it's hard to create a treatment protocol around
Listen,
self-advocacy
Joy,
and like pushing back.
I when I was in treatment, I tried to give myself permission to go to the bathroom, but the door was locked. I had to go ask. And then
Yeah.
I had to go ask again and be like, "Hey, could you flush that now?" So
Yep.
it's such a thing to break out of. Like after like going
It
through
is.
treatment, be like, "Okay, can I go this? Like, can I have a 4 hour pass? Can I have this to
Mm-hmm.
eat instead of that to eat?" And there's just so much like it's built, like you said, like it's built into the system. So like I
Yeah.
remember like,
And don't get me wrong, like, treatment programs can be absolutely life-saving and critical, and like, I'm not saying don't go to
oh, for sure,
treatment.
yeah,
I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's just, I hear from a lot of people who are like, I'm diligently following my treatment program over and over and over. I've been through several treatment programs. I've been a star student in treatment, and I'm still not recovered. And it's because treatment will take you a good chunk of the way, but like the home stretch is when you're going, I don't need permission to eat. I don't need my treatment program to tell me to eat. I can just decide. And that's like stage 2 kind of,
yeah,
like that's the final boss round kind of. Um which is hard.
yeah. It was it was tough for me to like come back after like an overcorrection, like getting out of treatment, and be like, all right, I can do what I want now. Like I gave myself permission to do everything. Be like, I'm gonna go try
Mm-hmm.
this, like I'm gonna go do this, gonna like see what this drug's about, like gonna go drink this for a while, gonna go sleep with this person. After a while, just being like,
Mm-hmm.
time to reel it in. We gotta dial this
Mm-hmm.
back a little bit.
Right.
Like,
Well, and that's
and then like
something
get
we
comfortable with
see.
feeling like, okay, like I'm cool, like I'm just gonna like do my thing and like enjoy who I am, and then like
Mhm.
moving like a step past that, even like into marriage, and being like, all right, now like there's like I'm holding myself accountable, but then also like being like, okay, there's a family now too, so I can't be like, well, I'm just gonna go do this now, like I'm gonna go do this, like
Right.
is that cool? Okay, that's cool with everyone. I'm gonna go do this now. It's just like it's changing, but I love it.
Yeah. And um that kind of brings up the question of how do you know when what you want to do is the right thing
Mm,
to do. And that's another stage of recovery, which I think is actually something that people should kind of aim for early on, which is much easier said than done. But identifying what your core values are, um, which is hard because, like, if you look at like a list of like values, like honesty, loyalty, blah blah blah, like everybody's going to be like, yeah, I value that.
sure.
But but if you have to like rank them against each other, like your core values are the ones where you're like,
Oh yeah.
I have to choose between being liked and doing the right thing.
Mm,
Like, um, which one will you prioritize first? And that's your core
mm-hmm.
value. And like, so then when you're doing the thing of my treatment program says I can do whatever I want now because they're not the boss of me.
What's your
Um,
core value? Like I don't have any
then,
values then, so I just had to find out where my line was.
right. Yeah. And honestly, like it takes some experimentation too. And sometimes there's is still value in recovery of falling flat on your face and seeing what happens and then taking a moment to be like, okay, when I did this, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I want? How did that feel? How do I learn from that? Like, did it surprise me and go well? Did it go very poorly? And then this is a tricky thing that we see a lot of times of people who've been in treatment program after treatment program for like decades is like there's this sense of no one's telling me what to do, therefore I don't have to take care of myself. I can listen to my eating disorder,
Oh.
but like the consequences are theirs to own
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, which is a hard thing. And there's this sort of like sense of externalizing, like, yes, I destroyed my life, but it's their fault for not preventing me from doing
Mm-hmm.
it. And so like sometimes that's a stage in recovery in and of itself is
Oh.
like, no, I made that choice and I own the
Mm-hmm.
consequences. Yeah.
All right, so we can start wrapping it up, if that's cool.
I feel like, I don't know if we've had any like major zingers of really good advice though.
Oh,
Do we? I don't know.
a zinger of...
I always want to make sure people leave with like something life changing.
Yeah. Oh, at work, uh, we were talking about advice and kind of mottos or mantras that you have throughout the day or that you had during difficult times. And I was wondering if you had any like motto or saying or little like piece of wisdom that you had through your eating disorder, through early recovery that kind of helped you out during difficult times, that gave you like the extra like push.
There was a particular moment in my recovery where I had tried for so long to people please and be everything that everybody else wanted to me or wanted me to be. And I ended up like in just a crappy scenario where all my friends had like disappeared and I really needed people. And I was like, I've given
Oh,
everything and this is what I get. And I just had this moment where I was like, it can't get worse. Meaning that it's like a freebie at this point, you know? I can do whatever I want and it can't get worse. So I just kind of took that as an opportunity to be like, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what I've been trying all along just to see what happens.
there you go.
And it can't get worse. Like there's nowhere to go but up. And oddly enough, it was kind of a liberating place to be, you know? Like I didn't have anything to
Mm-hmm.
lose. And that was kind of amazing. I don't know, maybe it's like the one benefit of rock bottom is like whatever choice you make
Where
is
am I going?
up.
Yeah. Where's
Yeah,
this going to take me? Where's this path lead?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Mine was, I think I've probably talked about how many times I read the book 1984 in treatment. Um, but I think one thing that still stuck with me, and I shared with my HR group at work, because we were talking about, like things, like motivations and stuff. And I was like, one thing that really keeps me going through recovery, and also like still now, I'll remind myself of it, is having a body and mind to withstand life. And I think that's
Ooh, I like it.
I mean, it's more prescient in like the last few years, and like not only like keeping your body healthy and ready to go for whatever comes at you, either if it's like sickness or if it's something external, if you need to go to like a rally or protest and you need to have a sharp body for something to start running, and just to have a body to, be able to withstand things, have the wherewithal and emotional intelligence to, you know, maybe drop some things quick and go see a friend who needs your emotional support. And you can't do that on an empty stomach. And
Exactly.
you need to, yeah, just keep yourself, aware and enlightened to withstand just life. So that's kind of something I tell myself now, and obviously the life takes a different meaning, as the years go by. What is life? What do I need to withstand here? What's going to come at me? And it's always different, but you always need, your body and mind to be aware. And I think they're two different things, but they're intertwined together. I guess that's what I
Yeah.
would lead with too.
You're going through your video game at full strength with your character at full
Yes,
vigor.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. What is it? There's always before you enter like before you go in and see like an enemy or before you encounter a boss, or you're always going to see the little power ups or little med kits sitting around, and like, all right, just going to pick up
Yep,
all those little, health potions around before something happens. Even if I don't need them right now, I know, something's probably going to
exactly.
come, and I need what health I can when I can get it. So,
Yeah. And I've seen that a lot in people whose eating disorders were like rooted in like trauma and abuse and stuff, where part of their recovery is about like fighting some of the systems that allowed that to happen. And then nourishing yourself and having energy and having strength becomes your weapon
Mm-hmm.
in a fight for justice, which I think is kind of cool. And that's, you know, a pretty good motivation to eat a sandwich.
Yep.
You know?
That'll do it.
Yeah.
All right. We want to thank all of our listeners for coming with us again, and hope you've definitely learned, you know, some things about living. And yeah, I don't know. I really like this conversation. It's nice to kind of like delve back into kind of like what makes us tick, or what can be. You know, we get asked so many times, how do you do it? What do you like? How do you know when you're in recovery? And I think it's just the more you feel like you're being that core of yourself, like the more you get yourself back.
I always feel like the litmus test for me when I'm talking to someone in recovery, knowing like how far along they are in recovery, is how interesting and unique their story is. Because a lot of times, early recovery, you'll hear like, oh, I went to treatment, I'm complying with my meal plan, I'm doing good. That's all
Mm-hmm.
good stuff. But it's the same across the, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it's not until you start hearing stuff like, well, I, you know, took a look at this thing that happened in my life, and then I decided to follow this specific path, and then I healed this specific thing, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, now the person's becoming real,
Yeah.
and now they're whole, and that
They've done some work
there's a very different, yeah.
for sure.
So everybody go and make yourselves whole and claim your story.
Ah, there it is. There it is. Go whole
Yep.
and make yourself whole and claim your story.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it. I will say goodbye again. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, edofftopic@gmail.com, eating disorders off topic on Facebook. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Give us a like, follow the show for updates, questions. Sometimes we'll post things like, what do you want to talk to us about? We're doing the frequently asked questions, you know, every, you know, so often. So we'd love to hear from you. And that's it. I want to thank you for subscribing, and thanks again to our audio engineer, Brianne, for being so wonderful and getting these episodes up for us. So thank you again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.